There we go. We are live.
Ooh.
I know, it's exciting. I love talking about management because I think there's more options than people think. You know, more ways to put barriers between the dogs and the cars, or whatever it is that you're managing them with or from while you train, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Often management is all you need, actually, especially with puppies.
Hello, hi. We've got some people joining us. That's lovely. Welcome to this evening's live stream. We're just going to give people another few minutes to join. I think we had some issues last night with people getting into the group and things like that. So hopefully there'll be more people that find us this evening. If you can, remember, I'm going live through StreamYard. So there's a line down the bottom of the screen to go to streamyard.com/Facebook and just grant StreamYard permission to see your name. And then when you come back on, pop in a hi there and hello and give us a like and things to help other people find us, just so that I can see your name. Because if you comment and you haven't granted StreamYard permission, it just comes up saying Facebook user. And I feel that's awfully impersonal. I like to know who I'm speaking to. Hello, Paul. Thank you for joining. Tonight should be good. I know you've been looking forward to this section. So tonight should be good. So when you do join, don't be shy. Say hi. And as I say, we'll just give other people good evening. Sydney, thank you for joining. And Wendy. Okay, so Wendy, you're coming up as Facebook user. So if you go back out and either above or below, you will see a link that says I'm going live through StreamYard. If you click on streamyard.com/Facebook, then you will see a request to grant permission for me to see your name. Hi, Laura. Hello to Rachel, the Collie consultant. It's nice to see everyone joining. I know some people couldn't make last night, got tied up with work and various bits and pieces as well. So we'll just give people a few minutes to get the logistics sorted, and then we'll get started. Tonight should be good. Management and rewards. I've just realised that my cup of tea, when I drink my cup of tea, the cup covers my whole face. I'll try not to do that very much.
It's funny what you notice when you're live on air, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, when it's live and, you know, unedited. The unvarnished truth. Thank you very much for the likes. Yes, some likes and loves if you don't mind. That will help other people to find us on air. We are streaming to the Positive Pups Dog Training group and to my own page as well. So hopefully people won't have any trouble finding us this evening. But when you do get logged on, if you, again, just drop a comment, let me know you're here. Everyone who was on last night, I haven't seen any homework posts as yet. I'm assuming people have been busy with work. So later on, what I'll do is just make everyone aware that I'll give it till Sunday. So everyone has till Sunday to complete their homework. And for everyone who does complete their homework, they will all go into a hat, and I'll draw a name out at random, and that person will win a free month in the Happy Herder College. Give your training a kickstart. Okay, so I think Cara, yes, I knew you were joining tonight, Cara. I knew you hadn't been on yet. It's great that everybody's managing to get signed in, and I can see everyone's names tonight. That's wonderful. So I think we'll just get started, and if other people join, that will be lovely. So last night we covered why collies do what they do, why they chase cars, their breeding, and the whole variety of reasons. And hopefully people got a lot out of that in terms of body language and things in particular. Start really looking at your dog's body language to see what you've noticed. And actually, if you feel you would like to, pop some comments in as we go through this evening. I will read through all the comments at the end, same as last night. I'll wait until the end to go through all the comments and make sure everyone's questions get answered. But do let me know. Pop a comment in and let me know if you've noticed anything different, or even started noticing changes in your dog's body language today that perhaps you didn't notice up until yesterday. So tonight we are going to talk about management and how we can put management in place. What is management? And rewards. And as you will see, I am not alone this evening. As I said last night, we were going to be joined by my colleague, the Border Collie consultant, Rachel. She is not only a trainer, but she is also a certified and qualified behaviourist. And she is going to speak to us a little bit about the differences between behaviourists and trainers. And why, for example, I, as a trainer, am very careful to observe limits of where I believe within which I can work. And also there are areas where it wouldn't be appropriate for me to work. And obviously car chasing behaviour also fall under that. And Rachel's got plenty of experience. So Cara, yeah, the ears do tell you an awful lot, don't they? Border Collies have got such expressive ears. They do. So without further ado at the moment, I'm going to introduce you to Rachel Rogers, the Border Collie consultant, all the way from Lincolnshire. And she's going to have a chat with you, and then we will carry on and discuss. We've also got Oscar this evening. He's joining us. He's a little bit more awake than he was last night. So Rachel, I will be quiet and hand over to you.
Right, brilliant. Thanks, Angie. Hello, hi everybody. It's nice to be here. So, what is the difference? I'll tell you a bit about myself first. So, I started off with my first collie about 30 years ago, I think, and I've owned them ever since. I absolutely love the breed. I've had a few others. I've had a German Shepherd and a Papillon and bits and pieces, but no, nothing compares to collies. So a lot of experience with collies. I've had just about every behaviour problem, I think, that they can get. Used to do a bit of sport, used to do agility, obedience, flyball, done all those sort of things. But now I just live at home. We've got a tiny bit of land and we keep a few sheep. So I just work my collies on the sheep, which is lovely. And it's nice to see them doing what they're bred to do. So I guess the difference between a behaviourist and a trainer, I think the best way to look at it is if you compare a school teacher and a child psychologist. And so the school teacher teaches the children everyday things and things they need to know to be good members of society, which is what trainers do. And if there is a problem that the teacher can't handle, so if the children have got various behavioural problems, then that's when the child psychologist is likely to get involved. And it's just the same with dog trainers and dog behaviourists. So if the trainer's dealing with a dog and things aren't working when the trainer feels they should be, then that's when often they'll refer to a behaviourist. And we're just the same, actually. In the guidelines for dog trainers and behaviourists, it's very clear that all responsible trainers and behaviourists should refer on. So even if I got a case that I wasn't sure about, then I would probably refer on to a vet behaviourist. And we're all very careful to make sure that we stay within the limits of what we feel we can do. But I think I'm probably the only collie specialist behaviourist at present. So I see all sorts. I love it. Love my job. I really enjoy the repetitive behaviour side of it. And Angie and I were having a conversation about this the other day, and it's car chasing isn't exactly a repetitive behaviour under the classical definition of it, because it's a repetitive behaviour should be a behaviour that's carried out with no obvious goal. But then shadow chasing is classed as a repetitive behaviour, and the goal is to catch the shadow. So there's not a lot of difference between shadows and cars, really, except shadows can't be caught and cars in theory could, but it wouldn't end well. So anyway, I'm here tonight to answer any questions anyone has, and we'll start looking at the management side of things.
Thank you very much. And it's lovely to have you. So tonight, now that you understand the difference, tonight you've got a 2 for 1. If you have any questions, either behaviour or training related, as it relates to the sort of car chasing side of things, please do pop them in the comments. Don't be shy. Everyone was very quiet last night. Very engaged, but very quiet. So if you have any questions, or as I said earlier, if you've noticed anything today after last night's session in your dog, let me know. Let us know. So on to management. So it's a very interesting subject. And what actually is management, first of all? So management is a term that we use in training to cover a multitude of methods and techniques that we use to prevent your dogs or collies from practicing certain behaviours. Now, for some people, they use management only. They don't have the resources, the time, the will to put the training in place. And obviously, I would always recommend that you do follow it with training. Management is not a long-term solution. But there are a variety of things that fall under the bracket of management. So last night, for example, we had Amanda, who uses a halty head collar for safety when she's walking along roadsides. That would fall under management because they are struggling to maintain the dog's ability to prevent them from chasing cars, to prevent them from launching at cars and things like that. So the head collar can be used, but as I said last night, I would only ever use it as a short-term solution. So when we think specifically about car chasing, what do we mean? I'm sorry in advance, my cats have decided now that they want to play. So everyone that was asleep last night is wide awake this evening. So you may well get a show as well as some training this evening. You can see cats' tails in the background. I do apologise. So what does management look like? Well, in your homework booklet, I've given you some examples of that. And what I mean is preventing the dog's ability to practice or rehearse an inappropriate behaviour. Now, when I say inappropriate, that is inappropriate to us because it's not inappropriate as far as the dog's concerned. It's their natural instincts, it's their natural behaviours, or it's fear-driven. So what can we do? Well, my preferred option for everyone who has a car chasing collie would be keep them away from cars. If you can, keep them away from cars while you train the other behaviours. And if you remember last night, I spoke about layers of training, and it can involve lots of different things. No, you have to be quiet, please, Diane. not just now. There's layers of training: impulse control training, calm and focus and engagement, checking in, lots of things that we'll talk about tomorrow night. If it's at all possible, keep your dogs away from cars. Now, how can that be done when people live in built-up housing estates and maybe just leaving the front door takes you straight out onto a roadside? So another method of management is, okay, can you vary the times of day that you're walking your dog? Can you feasibly walk your dog at a time when it's less likely to be busy with cars. So are there specific, if you do currently walk your dog at specific times of day, and that's typically kind of morning and night, if you went out slightly earlier or slightly later, would you then see a difference whereby it's not as busy? Failing that, is it then feasible for you to pop your dog in the car and take them somewhere that you can walk them without the presence of cars? Because ultimately, this is a behaviour that will not go away on its own, but will get worse the more it is practiced. And as the title of tonight's live says, practice makes perfect. So we don't want them to get perfect. We want them to stop. If all of those things are unavoidable, what can you do? Well, if you live, again, in a built-up area where there are cars, then there are probably also parked cars. So it's not the first time I've done this myself, is actually block the dog's view. If there's a car coming, block the dog's ability to see the car. They may still hear it. And again, this is where we spoke last night about, is it the sound, or is it the movement, or is it the combination of both that triggers the dog? So block their view. If you can step across the front of them, if you can get them in behind or alongside a parked car where they physically cannot lunge across the road. When you are walking your dog, if you've got a car chasing collie, you want them on the inside of you, the inside furthest away from the road. Because if unexpectedly the dog does decide to lunge and it's unavoidable, you have the best possible chance of preventing your dog from ending up under the wheels of a car. Also, another method of management, although less effective, would be make sure that if you are walking your dog and you have absolutely no choice but walk your dog on a street where you know cars are going to go past, make sure the dog is on a shorter leash. I would have no more than a 1 meter or a 1.2 meter leash on the dog while you're in that area. You can always take a longer leash with you so that when you get to a wider area, you can put them on a long line while you're practicing, different behaviours, playing games, all that sort of stuff. If you are walking along a roadside and you know you have a car chaser, keep them on a shorter leash while you're in that area. Move further away. So many housing estates now have driveways and gardens and grass areas and things like that. So another method to manage things is create distance. Create distance from the cars. Now, obviously, again, bearing in mind how well and how far Border Collies can see, they may still be triggered, but they are way less likely to try and lunge at the car if they are a much safer distance away. Now, with that in mind, good grief, you're not behaving tonight at all, are you? Well, you gave me it. I do apologise. It's decided it's playtime. So where was I? I do apologise about that. Yeah, management. So there's something I want to show you, and I promise there is a reason for it. So I'm going to share my screen briefly. And when we think about, I want you to think about the things we talked about last night, as well as why I keep talking about distance and things like that too. So give me just 1 second. And I'm going to share my screen. Just as a word of warning, this is probably going to be loud. Obviously, it will depend on your screen and how you've got your volume set up, but it is deliberately loud. And I promise there is a reason for it. So that was that. Now let's do that again. That for you. So, what on earth was the purpose of my doing that? Hopefully, playing those videos. So the first video was really, really loud, lots of traffic, tooting horns, all that kind of stuff, really loud. The second was much quieter. Now, if you have a think about if you were walking along the roadside and you had a bit of sound sensitivity and things like that, and I were to say to you, while we were walking along the roadside, sit or come here, down, how well would you be able to focus? And if you compare that to the second video, where the sound was almost non-existent, that is the value of distance. It's not only about putting distance between the moving thing and the dog, it's the sounds, the overwhelming stimulation as well of the dog. So these are things we want to focus on. Rachel, feel free to jump in at any time. You are more than welcome.
That's okay.
You're
doing a good job. Yeah.
Thank you. So the things we're looking at so far is block their view if you can, but the ideal situation is don't put them in a position where they can have the opportunity to practice. That is the overriding preferred method. And yes, it may be inconvenient if you have to put your dogs in the car. If you don't drive, obviously that causes another layer of challenges for you, and I completely understand that. So then it becomes about varying the times of day that you walk the dog. Go out if you can at times, even if that means that you're out, later at night. Now, speaking about nighttime, many border collies, my own in particular, the biggest challenge was in the dark and when it was wet outside. Now, it can be wet in the daytime, and it's still now a bit triggering for him, because when it's raining outside, the car tires make a much different sound. It's louder, it's splashy, it's all sorts of other noises on top of the usual noises that cars make. And then in the dark, you've got street lights, headlights, brake lights, tons of traffic, all super stimulating for the collie's eyes, as well as if the ground is wet, that same splashing noises. So what we want to think about is these are all really overwhelming for the dogs. And we also talked, if you remember last night, we spoke about keeping the dog on the beach, keeping them in the green zone and the blue zone, keep them on the beach, or it's okay to have their feet in the water, but we don't want them to get in that up to their neck or over their head level. And that's why management is so important. So vary the time of day you go out, use a stationary car to hide behind. Also, when you're out, use what we call stations when you're out as well. So your dog knows if you use a familiar route, the same route each time you go out, if that's something you do, pick stations, stationary places. It could be a tree, it could be a parked car, it could be a fence post, and have either treat drops or play a game in that area. And sometimes actually just going out and sitting way back from the road at a really safe distance, and not in a place where there's cars, but just letting the dog watch the world go by. Sometimes that can be more valuable to the dog than a 4-mile run. yes, border collies need exercise, physical exercise and mental stimulation. And yes, putting in the work is so worth it. But relationship, as I said last night, relationship is absolutely everything. And actually just sitting together, hand feeding, some treats and things like that can add more value to your relationship with your collie, and actually encourage them to start that checking in that we were talking about too. Oh, wait a minute, you stopped giving me treats. Let them watch the world go by. We like doing it. And it can also help tons for dogs that would be labelled as reactive. Because if they're allowed to sit and watch things from a distance they're comfortable at, then they can see things without feeling stressed and scared. And that includes cars. So that brings us on to, I've started talking about rewards. That brings us on to the kind of rewards section. So what rewards?
Can I just say, Angie, before you go on to the reward bit, I'd say as well, sniffing. Sniffing is really, really good. So, yeah, when you're walking along and your dog's worried about something, let them sniff everything. Sniffing lowers arousal. Sniffing and eating treats and licking all lower arousal. We really need to keep arousal low around traffic. And I'd echo what Angie said as well. If you can avoid roads, avoid them, because every time, if you've got a reactive collie, every time a car comes and the dog reacts and the car goes, the dog thinks that its reaction chased the car away. So every time a car goes past, it's being reinforced. And even if we start training and working on ways of stopping that, if the dog is still at the same time as the training, a different time of day, obviously, but if they're still being walked next to traffic and they're chasing cars and being rewarded for it because the car goes away, then the training is going to take you a lot longer, and it might not even work because the training we'll put in place needs to be more rewarding than being able to chase traffic. So yeah, it's really important to avoid, if you can. I try and get people just to not walk near roads at all, really. But I know it's not always possible. But the people I have that do have to walk along roads struggle a lot more. So yeah, that's it, I think.
With regard to rewards, so from a car chasing collie's point of view, the chase is the biggest reward. It's intrinsic. We spoke briefly about this last night. The intrinsic rewards are the ones that come from inside the dog itself, that give them a huge rush of dopamine, that feel-good hormone. And as Rachel just said, and as we spoke about last night, that rush that comes from the building confidence of, I just chased that big scary thing away. Look at me, I'm so clever. And they build in that confidence. And the hit of dopamine gets higher and higher and higher every time. And so there's nothing of equal value that we can offer the dog. And that's why it becomes so important, if it's at all possible, to remove the dog from walking alongside cars before you do your training. Now, I can, from personal experience, I spoke last night about at my front door and Oscar, when he was, 7 months and 2 days old. Hi, speak of the devil. I live in an estate where there is a road right outside my house. And what I ended up doing, thank you, hello. What I ended up doing was putting him in the car and taking him to a secure field, or taking him to the woods, or taking him various places that was away from cars. There were some places I took him where we could still hear cars, but he couldn't see them. And that was during the period where I was trying to analyse whether it was the sound that was triggering him or not. That was before I discovered the YouTube videos. But yes, absolutely. Oh, you're a sook. So yeah, putting him in the car, because on the days where I couldn't do that, I noticed a huge difference in his behaviour inside the house as well, when I'd had to walk him and I couldn't go out in the car, and he did get that opportunity to practice. And I also found training went much faster when I stuck with it and just said, you know what, absolutely, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to walk him when I know cars are going to be around and they're going to be a factor. It is tough. And for car chasing collies, I would be lying if I said this was going to be easy to you. Because what we are doing, unless you've got a puppy who has not yet paired the feel good with the car, that is obviously the best time to get in. But what we are dealing with, for the most part, is dogs that are either adolescent or adult dogs who have probably practiced this for quite a while. And for those dogs, it's not going to be an overnight fix. And it is absolutely not going to be a 1 or 2 day fix. This can take a long time, and it takes 100% consistency. And if I didn't say that to you, I'd be lying to you and I'd be selling you short. Rachel, please tell me if you would disagree with that.
No, not at all.
I do think the difference it can make if your form of management is to remove them from cars at all, can make huge difference. And then you slowly build up. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Rachel's going to speak about counter conditioning and desensitization tomorrow night as part of the training live. So what else can we do? Yes, the head collars can be used with care, I would say, with care. Because if you've got a dog that is wired to lunge or try and lunge at a car, you have to be really careful with what you're putting around its neck, around its nose. All those kind of places can get really damaged with the barking and lunging behaviours. So what do we do rewards wise? Well, as a positive trainer, I am absolutely a fan of food-based rewards. And to let you understand, positive training is not getting your dog fat. It is not feeding them and that's it. Because eventually we want to feed the treats and those rewards. But there are other rewards. This is why in task 1 of the homework, which I'm still very hopeful some of you will do, I asked you, what does your dog love? Because a reward doesn't have to be food, but it does have to be something your dog finds reinforcing. If it's of no value to your dog, it doesn't matter whether it's chopped liver. If the dog doesn't like it, it isn't a reward to the dog. But if your dog loves sniffing, if your dog loves chasing squirrels that it's never going to catch because it sees them, that's another chasing behavior. If your dog loves running, playing a game of chase with you, playing a game of tug with you, within reason, a ball, that can be a controversial topic. Frisbee, if your dog could get involved in sport, if your dog could get involved and loves alternative methods of letting them have that chase response. Hundreds of things, as well as food rewards, life rewards, environmental rewards. The environment is training our dogs whether we like it or not. They are teaching them things. So what we want to do is use that to our advantage. These things can all become rewards. But if you don't know what your dog likes, you don't know what they're going to find rewarding. So that's when we get stuck in that little box of, well, it's treats or nothing. And some collies are just not that food driven. They can be, led to being more food driven. Are there other rewards and things like that you can think of, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, there's toys, there's food, there's tug's always a good one because you can keep the dog with you, whereas other toys you kind of have to throw them around, which isn't very safe, especially if we're going to be doing it nearer traffic. To be honest, food is best if we can get that to work, because again, like I was saying earlier, food lowers arousal and which is always good for this sort of training. But I think if you're talking about doing the sort of work we want to do where we're getting the dog focused on us away from the traffic, then toys are amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I just say as well, if your dog's not into treats, and whereas at home they love them, and they tend to find things out and about a bit worrying, and you can see them looking around and they're always anxious, and they're anxious in not just chasing traffic but in a range of other situations as well, then sometimes anxiety medications can help, which is again where I come in as a behaviourist. So if Angie was working with somebody and the dog didn't want to take treats and you weren't able to progress, then that's where I'd be able to come in and get involved with the vet. And write to your vet and organise for the dog to be put onto anxiety medication if we felt that was right. So sometimes that's needed as well with car chasers if they're really, really worried and they're just generally anxious about the environment, then treats and toys and anything really isn't going to cut it, because they just don't want to be there. So sometimes that's a requirement as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is where and one of the tasks in the homework asks everyone to look at the dog's body language.
Brilliant.
I spoke a lot about body language last night and gave examples, and in the task in the homework I give examples under each of the headings as well, to try and identify which of the groups the dog, your own dog, falls into. And that's the thing about training. You can only train the dog in front of you. And that's why when I said last night, I wasn't being remotely dismissive when I said last night, if you get the Facebook people who recommend sit at the top of the street with your dog. I did that for a fortnight and it worked, etc., etc. Yes, we spoke a bit about flooding last night and how that's not a good idea.
Absolutely not. It may work for 5% of the dogs. For 95%, it'll make them much worse.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing we need to focus on is the dog in front of us. That's the only dog we can work with. It's the only journey we care about. And that's what I love about things like this situation, these lives, and hopefully as the community grows in the Happy Herder as well, it's good to share your journey, to share your frustrations, to share your wins and all that kind of stuff. But always be wary of comparing your journey to someone else's and your progress to someone else's, because your dog may have only been practicing for 6 months at this, so it might be a lot easier to kind of wind them back again, whereas someone else's dog might have been practicing this for years, and it's going to take a lot longer and different strategies. And if your dog is doing it because they're terrified and they're trying to scare the thing away because all their other strategies have failed, that is a very different dog and a very different training plan than the dog that is doing it because they are supremely confident. It is genetically wired into them and they just want to chase things and stop and control the movement. That's a very different training plan altogether. Management, though, is the same for them all in that respect. We want them away from cars until we can get some training in place and start the relationship building and the checking in and the impulse control and the different layers of training and the desensitization and counter conditioning. For the hardwired herders, as I call it, who are rarer, as Rachel pointed out to me. My Oscar was one of those, never showed a day's fear of a car in his life. But even he has the ability and has made huge progress. Would I walk him along a roadside off leash? Absolutely not, never. And I would never recommend anyone do it with a border collie. But I know, and I've seen in the group, some of the comments in the group, even people who have had multiple collies in their lives have never had a car chaser before. It's not a problem that every collie has, but the ones that do have it can cause major problems for themselves and their guardians and owners with it. So yes, so rewards, food, toys, life rewards, petting, cuddles. Not every border collie is a cuddly collie, but those that are absolutely love it. Just relationship. I go on and on and on. People will be sick of it. I think the number of times, if I counted up the number of times I've said relationship in the last 2 nights, people must be sick hearing it. But I can't stress it enough. The training that we do works towards that goal. And you have a good relationship with your dog and you've got a different dog, you know.
Yeah, I heard last night, heard you say earlier, you'd done checking in. You spoke about checking in, which is brilliant as well, because it's you need that. If you're going to expect your dog to be focused on you rather than traffic, then yeah, you've got to start at the bottom, you know, right with the basics. Actually, I've got a video that I could show, Angie, if you wanted me to, that explains why management is so important and why it's so important.
That would be lovely.
Okay, how do I share?
No, I'm not actually sure. Have you got at the bottom the bit that says present?
Screen. Yeah, fab.
That's it.
Right. Screen sharing is best with 2 monitors.
Yeah, I don't worry about that. I like adding things like this because I think it adds a bit of variety for people as well. You know, much as
definitely.
Much as it is fun to have these smiling faces at you, I think adding some things to help visually explain what we mean rather than having people feel that we're just talking at you. That is not how I want you guys to feel. I want you to feel involved and engaged and interested and like you're getting something out of this. Are you ready, Rachel?
Nearly. Bear with.
No problem.
Right. I think so. Let's see if this works. Right, share. Can you see that video screen on YouTube?
I have to add it to the stage, which I've now done.
Perfect. Right. So this is the video.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing.
So that is obviously the car chasers. So at the moment, our car chasers chase cars when they see a car. So that's where that comes in.
Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
There you go. So that's that. But it just shows you that if we can limit all practicing of the old behaviour and start completely on a new behaviour without any of the old behaviour occurring at all, then that's why we stand a much better chance. So I'll stop.
Thank you very much.
That's okay.
That's great. I've just zoomed us in. So with that in mind, I think I've managed to make my screen bigger than it should have been. There we go. Obviously, we've talked about management. So from that video then, what that shows is, and the dog's brain works in very similar, if not the same way, in that when we want to teach them, And this is what I talked about last night. It's not about stopping car chasing is not about just training new behaviors. It's about teaching the dog to feel differently about the cars. It's changing the emotional connection that they have. And only by doing that can we then stop that intrinsic reward that they get from doing it. And that's where training comes in. And as Rachel said, sometimes in more extreme cases, also behaviorism and involvement with the vet. So I am going to have a look through the comments and go through. Please do ask questions if you have them. I hope this has been valuable for you. So Sydney, shadow and light chase. Now I'm going to say this poor dog's name wrongly. Is it Bria? Is it the silent G? Shadow and light chasing is Bria's specialty. Rachel, do you want to have any input there?
Yeah, I tried to reply, but it's not letting me reply for some reason, so I can't reply. But I actually have, if it's all right to mention it, Angie, I have a Facebook group for border collies with repetitive behaviours. So I'll have to share it somehow because it's not letting me post. But
Right, okay.
I'll give it to you and you can share it to people.
Yeah, I can put the link in. Sydney is in the Positive Pups dog training group.
Brilliant.
So if you want, Sydney, I can pop a link to Rachel's Facebook group or specialist Facebook group for shadow and light chasers and repetitive behaviours. And you could maybe chat directly with Rachel.
Yeah, no problem.
That was the next one is yourself. Next one, I've got a Facebook user. How do you stop car chasing? As my boy is obsessed with cars, he lays down in the road in front of cars and won't move. Okay. I guess my first question there would be, why is he in the road to lay down in front of the cars?
It might be crossing. Sometimes I see people who...
Yeah, is it parked cars? Is it moving cars? Do you want to just add to that? Add to your question, get a little bit more information. This last night's live and tonight's and then tomorrow night's. I'm sorry, it says Facebook user. I don't know if that's Wendy because I know she had some trouble getting her name to come up. Tomorrow night is about the training. So I'll come back to that one if that's okay. Rachel, hi. Facebook user, I'm assuming this is maybe the same person. As a social worker analysing behaviour for a living, I'm confident I have a good grasp on understanding my dog's behaviour. She chases or stares at shadows when she's not the focus of attention, but it's not always appropriate to focus on her at a material time. How do I address this? I think this one's for you, Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's too much to go into. This is a car chasing webinar, I think, but I can certainly help. So if you pick up the group details from Angie, then I can help you with that.
Yep, brilliant. And Cara, my dog seems to get a high from looking at and trying to chase birds in the sky. God bless him. The same as he gets from seeing cars. I put him in the car now to go out, but I can't control the bird situation. Yeah. Now, if I'm right in thinking from the group, Cara, that's Patch. And I think Patch is generally a bit nervous of the outside world at the minute. You've got a great relationship with him when he's indoors, but when he's outside, everything's just a little bit scary. So if you join tomorrow night, I know he obviously is chasing cars. We will talk about the training and the kind of layered approach to training and things like that. But for a dog like that, who's kind of got multifaceted problems, in addition to the car chasing, kind of by the sounds of things, a general level of anxiety with the outside world, there's kind of different things I would probably work on there as a starter. Building up getting outside the house so that he's able to go outside the house. But yeah, please do join us tomorrow. You're right, there is nothing you can do about the bird situation. But as you go through training and as you build the level of focus that he's able to have outside with you, and it may be that something I would do is refer you to someone like Rachel initially if his level of anxiety is so high that it's potentially, you know, some kind of medication as a short-term solution might work. In order, because I would never recommend medication because I'm a trainer and not a behaviourist. But what I can say is, even speaking about medication sometimes conjures, it gets people's hackles up. So he is medicated with fluoxetine, which helps. He's confident rather than nervous, okay? But the overload seems to cause stress, okay? So he is confident when he's outside, but gets easily overstimulated. Yeah. So that then becomes about working on things to help him just focus on you. A lot of the time, when we manage to get dogs to learn to focus on us instead of the everything else, that kind of hypervigilance and scanning and things like that settles down, because they look to us for that reassurance or guidance or direction, or where do we go next, mum? You know, and that kind of stuff. But it also then becomes about giving the dog some choices as well. Let them choose what direction they want to go in, as long as it's not going towards Main Road, if it's car chaser. So yeah, stick around tomorrow, Cara.
I think, well, if it's okay just to add, Angie, I think, again, stopping them practicing the behaviour when you can. So don't leave them out in the garden on their own to chase birds for hours at a time. I think it would mean having a long line and going out with them in the garden and doing something to distract them, and always try and preempt it. So think, right, we're going out in the garden, she's going to chase birds, so do something, have something set up when you can. It's all off. So much of it comes back to management. These are the sorts of situations where, if she's even doing it in the garden, Catcher's doing it in the garden and places like that, that's where I would sort of start building the value in tug toys and flirt poles and things absolutely. Like that. Food scatters as well. Things Scent
that
training could be good too.
Nose, you want to encourage the dog's nose to go down the way, because they can't be sniffing at the ground and looking up at the sky for the birds at the same time. So what we talk about in training terms is teaching an incompatible behaviour. So what the dog is currently doing allows the dog to look up at the sky or the fences to see the birds, to chase them. What we want to teach is an incompatible behaviour, such as scent work or chasing a flirt pole, or something that encourages the dog's nose down towards the ground, so then they're not noticing the cars. And also doing things like that then start to build a positive association with the area that they're playing in, and they don't see it as an area to feel stressed, because they have fun when they're there. And so you start, again, that talking about the counter conditioning and things like that, which Rachel will go into a lot more tomorrow.
And free work can be good as well. Gives them something to do in the garden. Which is just sort of laying out various different household items that they probably see in the house but not in the garden. So you might have an upturned linen basket, a bin, few pots, any junk that you've got lying around, to save all your recycling. Anything really, and then you sort of lay it all out in the garden and then scatter treats on it and things under it and different treats. And I can share a video for you to post, Angie, as well, of free work in action. And that's getting the nose
tomorrow night, if you want to show that tomorrow night.
Okay, that'd be good.
Great. Okay, I hope that answers your question for now, Cara. Sydney, thank you. You're very welcome. I hope you're finding some value in this. Paul, I've just directed windbreakers across my garden to reduce the area in which they can run and play, and also not see cars through the gaps in the fence. Brilliant. I also keep the blinds closed so they can't see cars through the windows. How wonderful. That's amazing. management. I know having to keep the blinds and curtains closed because your dog can see things through the window. As an alternative, if you don't want to keep the blinds closed, because I would assume that shuts out all the daylight, you can get opaque window film. So it sticks to the windows and it adds that layer of opacity, I think it's called, to the window where the dog can't see out the window. So the dog can't see the cars anyway, but it actually still lets daylight in. So that could be an alternative, and I think you can get it. I got mine out of Dunelm when I was working with Oscar on it. But I think lots of places do it. You just have to double check because some of them are, they say self-adhesive, but they actually use water. They're not actually sticky. So the one I got was a sticky one, and I did get that from Dunelm, I think it was, or Argos. And stick those across the windows. So then you'll still get some daylight in, Paul, but the dog still won't be able to see the car. The windbreakers are a fab idea, brilliant idea, and management. Hello. Are you saying hello to everyone? Yes, you are. You're making your presence felt tonight, young man. Oh, hi. Does anyone have any other questions? Good boy. Yes, if anyone's got any other questions, that would be awesome. Failing that, as I said, we no down. Good boy. I'd love to see some homework posts in the group because all of these things, the lives are great and stuff like that, but change won't happen if you don't make it happen. And kind of the tasks and the homework are things that really, really will help. They'll help you understand your dog a bit better. They'll help you understand why they do what they do. You know, is it fear? Is it a driven nature? And I'm just scrolling back up the comments because Cara, yeah, you said the ears tell you an awful lot. I'd be interested to know if you want to expand on that. I completely agree. Border Collie ears are fascinating in a great way. Quite often the very first thing that goes, it's like radar satellites. They're the very first thing that go when you're dealing with car chasing. The first signal that you often see. So yes, tomorrow night Rachel will be joining us again. It will be at 7:30 again. Do post comments and questions if you've got any more that you want to ask this evening. If there's anything you want to ask myself or Rachel privately, you can also do that on Messenger, or I can put you in touch with Rachel directly. That's not a problem. Does anyone have anything else this evening? No. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Oh, yes, and whilst I was on the subject of homework, as I said earlier, for everyone who does submit all of the homework tasks, you'll be entered into a wee competition. I will draw the name out the hat on Sunday. Now, if anyone chooses to sign up to the Happy Herder or would like to, but isn't, in case they then win the competition, if you have signed up and then you do win the competition, your month's premium will get refunded. Okay, so if you do choose to sign up to the Happy Herder and join us, or join me, sorry, then your month's premium will get refunded to you if you then are the winner of the competition. There's lots of stuff in there. It's not all just about car chasing. There's a whole host. There's 12 different modules, probably nearing 80 videos now, training videos, live sessions. These videos will get moved into the Happy Herder after about a week. So you only, the kind of the members. When I say a membership, it is not a minimum 12-month commitment though. You can try it out if you want to, and then if you decide it's not for you, that's absolutely fine. And I don't even need you to email me directly and go through a whole, process. You can cancel from within your own account if it's something that you decide is not for you at a later date. So that's just to let you know. And it was just in case anybody was thinking about it, but then thought, well, I might not bother because what if I win? Then I've already paid for it. Is it also possible to have individual chats with you when joining? Yes, absolutely. Part of the whole premise of the Happy Herder College is that if you are struggling to put together a training plan for your dog, I can help you with that as well. That's the whole thing is ongoing support. So within joining the Happy Herder is not just about getting access to online training. There is a separate private Facebook group that's been set up that will only be accessible by members. You can upload training videos. I will give you personalised feedback and tips on how to improve. I recommend, whether you're a member of the college or not, recommend that you video your training. When you're doing training with your dog, video it. Rachel's nodding as well. Yeah. When I started videoing my training that I was doing with my own dogs, the difference it made was incredible. Because when you are doing it, you can't see where you're going wrong. And if you have a bad training session, you just see it as a bad training session. Whereas if you actually video it, then watch it back, you can actually feel a bit better about it as well, because there can be quite a lot in a session that actually went really well, but there's just little bits. It could be timing, it could be your dog's just having an off day. Humans have them, dogs have them, you know. But watching it back and being able to go, oh God, you know, I shouldn't have given the treat then, I should have waited till then, or I made him wait too long for the treat, so I actually thought I was rewarding him for coming back instead of the nice walking on the leash, or variety of things like that. So even if you decide never to join, video your training. That's one huge tip I could give everyone for free. You know, that's it's so helpful to go back. But yes, in answer to your question, oh, sorry, I missed your comment before that, Car. After last night, I watched Patch's ears more. When outside, his ears go back to a more flat position frequently. Right, okay. Now, a flat back position would suggest he's maybe a bit nervous or stressed to me. Would you agree with that, Rachel? They can be hyper aware of what they're, but if he's not got the, but then it depends. Is Patch normally a pricked eared dog, or is he a floppy eared collie? So I guess that's a question in there as well.
I think sometimes if their ears are back and they walk in the front, it's because they're listening to see what you're doing as well. But often you do see when collies are stressed and they're sort of, I've seen it before when collies on roads and they're worried about traffic, they do tend to have their ears pinned back like that.
Yeah. So that's great that you've already started to notice it. Floppy to the side when relaxed. Yeah. So that does sound a little bit stressed, perhaps then. So it's going to be teaching Patch a little bit to relax a little bit more and just feel a bit more comfortable when he's out. So if he's chasing cars, potentially sounds like he's maybe doing it out of a bit of fear and anxiety rather than that kind of just a driven border collie type reason. So does anyone have any other questions? If not, I will let you all go to the remainder of your Thursday evening. I hope again that you found tonight useful and have taken some things away from it. I do hope to see some of your homework posts in the group. It would be really, really useful for you, if nothing else, just to see that you're getting a better understanding of your own dog, actually. And then you can start working on that. So if no one's got anything else, Rachel and I will say good evening, and tomorrow night, same time, same place, and we shall see you then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.